Sir Mustafa Canlı, thank you very much for your time, for your efforts, and for your very, very good presentation. Thank you. And now I would like to invite Rabia Aamir. Rabia, are you here? Yes, she
Yes,
is.
I am here. Yes.
Okay, yes.
Hello. Thank you so much, Professor Gökçen Kara. And it's a pleasure to be here in this conference. Luckily, I was here in Turkey for my postdoc. And I'm from Pakistan. And my research is on Palestine and Kashmir, literatures of Palestine and Kashmir. And I recently, one of my books and one of the chapters in anthology and several articles, even Sita Foundation. It's like in March, I presented for Sita Foundation. So here I am. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I just wanted to share some of the, can I present my presentation? Let me know if you're able to see it.
Yeah, we can now see your desktop.
Yeah, okay. I know everything would be visible because I can't just a minute. Conference, yes. Yeah, there you go. So I hope that my presentation is visible now.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the title of my presentation is Beyond Contemporary Postcolonial Marxism, reading of Mohsin Hamid's How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia. So for my audience here, let me tell you that Mohsin Hamid is a Pakistani author of international fame. You must have heard about him. And post-colonial Marxism is a relatively a new understanding about which I found in his work in this novel, How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia. But, my contention, my argument is that it is going even beyond this contemporary post-colonial Marxism. So going forward, I'm going to bring in Bauman's quote, which is very relevant to begin this presentation and this discussion about the post-colonial Marxism. According to Bauman, he says, questioning the ostensibly unquestionable premises of our way of life is arguably the most urgent of the services we owe our fellow humans and ourselves. So this quote makes it equally relevant to any part of the world, not just, the realm which Hamid is talking about, or any other realm for that matter. So we can relate with this particular quote that we have to question the ostensibly unquestionable premises of our way of life. So that is something we are going to discuss further. When we talk about, this paper, let me just give a brief preamble and, a sort of understanding that this paper is actually a reading of the dominant leitmotif. Leitmotif is that something which brings, comes again and again. So it's a recurring pattern. So this paper reads a dominant leitmotif of Mohsin Hamid's novel, How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia, written in 2013. It is a subversion of both the phenomena of colonialism and imperialism. However, besides tracing the critique for a derivative aspect of colonialism and imperialism, which is namely globalization. So in fact, this whole argument is revolving around colonialism, imperialism, and globalization. And globalization it can be seen as a progeny of colonialism and imperialism. So this paper also studies the subversive rhetoric of this novel, which flanks with post-colonial Marxism, eminent aspects of post-colonialism, and those aspects of the Marxist approach that adopts a nuanced approach towards imperialism and post-colonial Marxism, and ipso facto critique of globalization. In other words, whatever critique we have for colonialism or imperialism, the same goes for globalization, as we saw in the quote above by Zygmunt Bauman. So therefore, the epithets circumventing and subverting the hegemonies of colonialism, imperialism, and globalization are also studied in this talk. And this research looks at the possibilities of reorienting the post-colonial paradigms of inquiry and taps beyond the possibilities of post-colonial Marxism as a sociological concern. Moving forward, we see that now this is a pictorial depiction of all these three isms, you can say. Post-colonialism, as the picture is very self-reflective, that it was under the iron, foot of any of the countries which colonized the colonizers, and our part of the world was one of them. And Marxism is something which is like which dominant base is economic. Right, so it is revolving around that economics of the dynamics of economics, and globalization is again nothing else than so it is a kind of a progeny, we can say, of post-colonialism and Marxism, and therefore they all have to say, post-colonialism. If I go back, if you look at this previous one, it says that just a minute. Yeah, that Marxism and post-colonial studies have something to say to each other. So they are no more at daggers drawn, but I contend that they are saying some things to each other, which is something which we need to look into. So that Robert J.C. Young, in his White Mythologies, he's a post-colonial critic, and in his tricontinental theory, and he talks about and he criticizes or critiques on male Anglo-Saxon Marxist academia, which he calls it Mama, right? So he says that he took the critical elements of Western radical discourse and combined it with he's saying that any Eastern or any, non-European or non-Western, academia or understanding of the things or criticism, it took critical elements of Western radical discourse and combined it with the dissidents of their own. And however, he also remarks, and he also points out that the dominant would not listen, even if, they present, just like in the previous presentation, previous presentation, she was talking about two travelogues. Right, so the dominant would not like to listen to it, and because any third world input into Western knowledge or politics is typically suppressed and quickly forgotten. So this is what J.C. Young is talking about, and incidentally, the Marxist critic Ijaz Ahmed, his book, his very famous book, In Theory, Classes, Nations, and Literatures, he is like, of course, he was a Marxist, so he is talking about issues of colony and empire as an aporia. He calls them as an aporia, and which routinely appropriate discrete Marxist positions and authorial names, he says, while explicitly debunking the theory and history of Marxism as such. So he's not very comfortable with, Marxism talking with post-colonialism. However, I'm going to make a concise statement after these three theorists, we will see that what we have to how are they going to converge to a point? So and table issues, he says that they are unsystematic ways, systematic ways, right? So coming to the post-colonial Marxism, again, I would skip this because like it would be another part of the discussion which I am not bringing in. So cultural margins, Marxism, modernity and post-colonial studies is a book by Christo Bartolowicz and Neil Lazarus. And they argue that Marxism is a living project, not only as a discourse or a body of academic knowledge, but also as the most fruitful part to take in understanding both the colonial past and the contemporary world order. So here, actually, this is the convergence point of Marxism and post-colonialism, and it does not need to, and that's something which I found in this. There's this quote of Ania Lumba also, and she, if I read it towards the end, it says we define our contemporary globality. So globalization, of course, is dragged into this discussion of post-colonialism and Marxism. Moving forward, we see that this particular text, How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia, it's a sort of a text which talks to all parts of all corners of the world. Like, for example, if like I would say that if I'm here in Istanbul, I think this text will relate to that also. So his semblance of a critic remarked about him that it is a semblance of challenging the politics of a continent into the mind of an individual. So basically, the storyline revolves around an unnamed individual, the protagonist, the addressee of the novel, and who is shown to be a bearer of the politics of Asia in mind. The narrator gives this nameless protagonist in an unspecified part of Asia a set of satirical, albeit implicit, instructions in order to climb the ladder of success. So everything is actually satirical and ironical. It is a story of making progress, which with a strong undercurrent of irony, and the irony surfaces towards the end of the novel, as we will see. In a very conversational tone, Hamid chalks out the two corresponding facts of how to get filthy rich, and that too in the milieu of rising Asia. So then for this, what does he do? What is the storyline? So what he does is he gives three kinds of instructions to that addressee, and he says, now this is something I think everybody would be able to relate with this. The first instruction is to patronize the artists of war. Right. So we have got wars around us. We see wars around us, even in this 21st century. So his first set of instruction is to patronize the artists of war. And then the second instruction is avoid idealists. He, as we will see shortly, what does it mean? What does it imply? Avoid idealists. And the third one is, very interestingly, he says, don't fall in love. Right. And then let's unpack these three instructions a little bit. So first instruction is move to the city, right? Get an education, however, without falling in love or falling for leanings towards the leftist wings of idealism in an educational institution. So his first set of instruction is that you need to move to the city, from the rural area, move to the city. That's the first catch that you need to do, or first step. And then you have to get education, but don't fall in love, one thing. And the other thing is, do not go for any idealistic, tendencies in your mind. So be very pragmatic and, that. And we will see that it is kind of a Machiavellian approach that he's asking us to adopt, or his addressee to adopt. So, and just like as Zygmunt Bauman would argued that on everybody's lips, a fad word fast turning into a shibboleth, a magic incantation, a passkey meant to unlock the gates of all the present and the future mysteries. So this particular first instruction is emblem of this particular quote, we may say. So mobility has climbed to the rank of the uppermost among the coveted values. This is also Zygmunt Bauman told us. So trouble of the contemporary condition of our modern civilization because it has stopped questioning itself. Now, these are very important quotes. If we just sit and look deeply into them, especially the last one is, and this is what Zygmunt Bauman is saying, trouble of the contemporary condition of our modern civilization is it has stopped questioning itself. So that's questioning is very important. And this is what actually Mohsin Hamid is doing in this text, and I'm doing, I'm presenting it as likewise. So his first instruction of that, it is also an embodiment of Bauman's quote that globalization, when Bauman says, which drags economics towards the production of the ephemeral, the ephemeral realities that we have around us, the volatile through a massive and universal reduction of the lifespan of products and services, and the precarious, that is temporary and flexible part-time jobs. These are all something which we have around us, and we are part and parcel of this game, right? So yes, was the first instruction. The second instruction he gives is also very interesting. And he says to learn the tricks of the trade from a master, work for himself, even if he has to use violence. Now, these are the steps, small steps he's asking. Befriend a bureaucrat, and even patronize the veterans of war, all of to be accomplished applying a Machiavellian approach. So all this is to be accomplished, of course, if you have to remain in, if you have to befriend a bureaucrat or patronize the veterans of war, of course, you have to know the master of the trade. So this actually raises a kind of a dark and, dense, dark, straggly, and a deregulated thicket of global competitiveness, as Bauman would remind us, of goods, services, and signals that must arouse desire, seduce their prospective consumers, and outseduce their competitors, lest the global chase of profit and ever greater profit shall grind to a halt. So, if you look at the brackets, Bauman says rebaptized as economic growth, right? So we need to be wary of all these terms. And as Bauman is reminding, and as the text of Hamid is remind. Third instruction he gives in the novel is focus on the fundamentals. Now, this is very interesting. What a different sort of instruction it appears to be to us, that he says focus on the fundamentals before the protagonist is advised to apply the metaphorical exit strategy from the stage of life, right? So that is the third instruction. Now, how does he sync all these instructions? First instruction was to, move to the city, don't be an idealist, don't fall in love, just take a pragmatic sort of an, education, then befriend bureaucrats and veterans of war. And the third one is this, how you're going to exit the stage of life. So this is basically a Machiavellian economic factors into political. It is a discussion about that these are Machiavellian economic factors into the political and social fabrics of society, media, technology, and science, and even literature. So that is something this Machiavellian economic factor is impacting all. So Bartolowicz I would quote here Bartolowicz, who says that such commodification is an ineluctable consequence of the globality of contemporary capitalism and goes hand in hand with the greater exploitation of labor power and resources across the international division of labor. So with this quote, we can understand that it's not only, postcolonialism anymore, it's not only Marxism anymore, but this capitalism, the globalization, is something which is impacting all corners of the world. And Hamid makes his addressee realize the menaces of his upward journey by making him aware of the drone circling a few times, its high-powered eyes unblinking and flying observatory on. In the earlier presentations, they were also talking about this gadget that we have all the time in our hands, which is consuming all our, and it is like a panopticon, because we are being followed, we are being under surveillance, right? Similarly, the return of the addressee, again, these are the coveted goals which we have adopted. That return of the addressee's son after studying in North America, which despite Asia's rise retains some attraction for young conceptual artists. So this brings us to some of the instructions he gives towards the end of his novel, and he says, blow through the fluff. So, and he asks these rhetorical questions. Is getting filthy rich still your goal above all goals, your be all and end all, the mist-shrouded high altitude spawning pond of your inner salmon? So these are kind of a sort of a, and in one of his interviews, he said he sort of made it as a Sufi text to delve deeply inside and to bring out questions, answers to these questions. And then he says, focus on the fundamentals, blow through this fluff. And having less means, now this is the instruction this is giving towards the end of his novel, having less means having less to anesthetize you to your life. So because we are so engrossed in our lives, we don't need to, we don't want to look beyond that anesthesia, which is, camouflaged. So why? Because this is, again, he says towards the end of the novel, because the reality that with age, things are snatched from a man, often suddenly and without warning. So we need to take this particular, if you looked into, this particular figure of this man eating and eating, like, in a gluttonous way, just like we have that gluttony in Dr. Foster's by Christopher Marlowe. So he's implying the true goals in life. He's implying true goals in life is a universal understanding of such a station in life anywhere in this world. And he's implying that it had been a futile effort all this time. Towards the end of the novel, he gives us that it has been a futile effort. Why? Because the limited savings remain untouched, available for doctor's visits, tests, and medications. And it seems not improbable that in the race between death and destitution, you can look forward to the former emerging victorious. In other words, death is a boon. So it was all because while being poor, the faces had been pressed through that clear window on wealth afforded by ubiquitous television. But now you are nearly relieved you have been already separated from your fortune. In other words, we are made to go for more and more wealth, but this is what he is, critiquing Hamid. Hamid has actually used very powerful imagery to drive the nail right in the human psyche that, we have to blow through this fluff of this life and these this globalization. So as a concluding remark, concluding points, I would say that like a patient etherized upon a table in the morning, somebody was talking about Alfred Ray Prufrock, T.S. Eliot's Prufrock. So he's like, it is a line from that poem, and like a patient etherized upon a table, we are like that, makes the reader aware of the fact that hoarding wealth is a kind of addiction. And there is enough retrospection, discussion on the aimlessness, listlessness of such lives versus a life with a purpose and aim in this Marxist rhetoric of how to get filthy rich in rising Asia, which calls into question the panopticonic globalization, as I would call it. So we need to have this retrospection. And then further on, he says, and I bring in Bauman again, he first, it's the quote of Hamid, I certainly think that there is a post-colonial generation. I'm sure a lot of voices you are seeing coming out now are people who never had a colonial experience. We do not place a burden of guilt on someone who is no longer there. So globalization and economic agendas is something which the generations of the 21st century have to grapple with, to have to fight with, and they also have to come to grips with the task and means to combat this interregnum. And by questioning the hegemonies of imbibed conceptual binaries, of hoarding wealth and, consumerism and, capitalism, Hamid has consequently taken it beyond the fetters of even post-colonial Marxism. And he's talked about something which makes us realize and makes us understand what it should be. So, I thank you. I hope that I did not take much time.
We would like to thank you, and it was very, very, very nice to meet with you. Actually, it was today we across with a lot of researchers and academicians from across the world. From Pakistan, we have researchers from Canada, from Sweden, also from Iraq. Actually, it was our purpose to bring together these scholars from different cultural backgrounds, and I hope to meet you again for our upcoming events. Our conference will continue for 2 days. See you tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I would definitely like to join. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I hope that it was understandable. Because it was it
was very, very useful. Personally, I was very interested in Mohsin, Hamid, and especially Asian authors and your post-colonialism is something really interested me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. That is the end of today's session. See you tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Thank you, Hoja. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you for all the participants.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.